like you're saying, you show the block of cheese being equivalent to a burger.
Yeah.
How do you stress the impact? Do you get them to keep a food diary, for example? Or do you ever get people to actually list realistically what they're feeding so that they get an idea of quite the impact?
At the end of the day, an overweight animal, you're cutting off about 2 years of their lifespan. So a small child is not going to understand that conversation, but everybody else in the house might. So certainly have that conversation with people that this is unhealthy for the pet. We're doing more harm than good by giving little tidbits left, right and centre.
Welcome back to the Pause and Effect podcast, your trusted source for pet health information. I'm Dr. Cara, your host, a dedicated veterinarian with a passion for nutrition. And today we're joined by Sister Cat from Hillcrest Veterinary Hospital. Get ready to dive into weight clinics and discover how we support owners with overweight cats and dogs to try and extend the length and quality of the lives in our care. Welcome, Sister Cat. You're from Hillcrest Veterinary Hospital.
Yes.
And I pulled you in today.
No, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So one of the things that you do in the practice is run weight clinics. And what a great opportunity to speak to you, because it's quite a controversial subject, the whole weight thing. And we've been talking off air a little bit about the approach that you take. And I'm very interested to hear how you break the news. But for me, we have a discussion amongst our colleagues, and we say, like, how do you let owners know when there is such sensitivity around weight that their pet is overweight? So can we start there?
Well, yeah, so I actually am quite blunt about the subject. I'm not sort of going to tell you outright your dog's fat, but sort of like, oh, your dog's a bit chunky, and we need to look at that. But I certainly don't have any issues or qualms about announcing the fact it is a health condition. That's what you've brought the dog for a checkup for, to see how healthy your dog is, and I'm going to tell you if there's a problem.
You're there to break the news and in the interest of the pets.
Yes, exactly.
So how is your news received generally?
I must say, quite often it is well received. Or the people acknowledge the fact they know that the dog is overweight, but they actually don't know how to sort it out, or it happened so quickly, it ran away from them, and now they don't know what to do. And quite often not taken negatively.
So sometimes not beating around the bush and just saying,
exactly,
your pet's overweight, let's handle it.
And most of the time they know. They do know. They just don't know how to correct it now that it's gotten there.
Yeah. So I have this conversation with some of the kids in the house, and we talk, and it seems to be a bit of a trend that there is sensitivity, maybe in like a different generation to mine, about weight. You can't fat shame, the psychological impact of saying that something's fat, but obviously we don't have that issue with our pets, but we do deal with their owners.
Yes.
So in the event that owners don't take very well to it, sort of how do we tackle it?
Oh, that can be quite a difficult conversation to have. But at the end of the day, sort of trying to elicit the emotion of that. We obviously want your pet to be as healthy as possible for as long as possible, and we are here to help. I'm not making this a negative thing. We can make this a fun journey, and at the end of the day, you get to spend extra time with your pet, because obviously with extra weight you are decreasing a lifespan. So I'm wanting to help you have your pet for longer, and as I say, we can make it a fun journey. It's not a negative connotation. And certainly not shaming anybody. These things happen. Yeah. Especially if you've got kids in the house. Little sneaks and
or avos in your garden.
Exactly.
So we'll go into what causes overweight pets, but we're seeing it obviously in our cat and dog patients. So it's equal. Absolutely. Both.
Yes.
So let's start at the beginning. How do you identify that a pet is either overweight or obese? So what are the measures you look at?
So obviously, first and foremost, having a look at the pet. Most pets are supposed to have an easily noticeable waistline. So if you're not seeing that, and it's quite a straight from rib cage to hind quarter area, obviously the patient is a bit overweight. But then it goes into the full-on body condition score, feeling the patient as well as to how much excess fat we've got on the sides of the dog, and their activity levels and how they're managing in their day-to-day life as to how much of a problem it actually
So
is.
sort of how active they are, how they get around
Exactly.
and move.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think often, we'll get a question, we'll be like, oh, I've got say, a German Shepherd, how much should they weigh? And that is, obviously, we know as individuals, we're all human, or we're both females, but we are very different in weight because we
different
carry weight.
conformations. Everyone's going to
Absolutely.
weigh different weights. There's no set weight for any certain breed to be. There are rough ideas of what they should, in which weight category they should be in. But I can certainly not tell you that every Labrador needs to weigh 35 kilos. Some of them have short legs. They're closer to the ground. They should weigh less. All the big, tall guys, big, bulky males, they're not going to weigh 35 kilos.
Absolutely.
They're going to be up and over 40. Yeah.
So difference between males and females.
Exactly,
And then
yes.
just even within the breed, between males in that breed,
Yes,
there's
yeah.
a variation, a
Yes,
range.
absolutely.
Cool. So you're in your consult. Like you said, the advantage of running weight clinics is that people have come to you saying, I need your advice. So that's generally better received than perhaps the vaccination consultation where you're going, I'm breaking the news that your pet may be a little bit overweight. How do you make it a fun journey? So what are the steps that you take to sort of, how do you explain it to people in terms of, is it input, output?
Yeah. And also there's no pressure on it. There's no specific timeline that we need to adhere to. It's not like I need you to get this weight off in 3 weeks' time. And if you don't, there's going to be consequences.
There's no wedding.
Yes, yeah. So it's taking that pressure off immediately as well. It's like, this is a journey. We're going to be on it together. I'm not throwing you in the deep end, but I'm going to give you some helpful tips to get. And it's minor changes in your daily life. It's not like you now have to start running 5K yourself every single day. It's minor changes that you can do at home that can just help get the extra kilos off. If it is a drastic one, same sort of direction applies. It's not a race. It's not a speed contest as to we need to get it off by then. It's a progress. And
so what do you start with? Is it the diet? So say someone says, I'm really comfortable with this diet. Is it okay for them to remain on their current diet when they're on a weight program?
Well, it also depends where the weight is coming from.
Okay.
So if they're getting 8 scoops of food a day and they're actually only supposed to be eating 2, then it's probably not the diet itself that's a problem. We've just got to maintain portion or correct portions. As you had mentioned earlier, is there an avo tree in the garden? All of these things can add weight. Is your dog locked inside the house all day while you're at work? So activity is at a minimum. What is causing the weight gain in the first place? So that's what I try and ascertain, asking a lot of questions. Where the weight is coming from, and then go down the road of what we need to do to change that.
Okay.
If the animal is on correct portions, not getting sneaky treats, maybe doing a minimal amount of exercise, then we can look at a prescription diet to help get the weight off. But bearing in mind there can also be medical conditions that cause weight gain, such as hypothyroidism. So it's more trying to suss where the weight gain is actually coming from before I sort of get a plan of action.
I like that. Yeah. So let's assume that there isn't necessarily the right portion control. Where do you find that most of those issues come from? Is it a misunderstanding of how to adequately work out how much their pets are meant to be getting? Are they feeding for a weight that they shouldn't be? Where does the problem come from? Are other people feeding the dog? Where does the portion control issue generally originate from?
No, I definitely feel it was, I don't know where it came from, but there's always this 1 cup wonder. Every dog in every household seems to get 1 cup in the morning and 1 cup in the evening. And nobody's ever gone and looked at the back of the bag as to the exact weight of what the food should be that they're getting dished out on a daily basis. And the cup size is also varying. So, but it seems to be this magical myth of a 1 cup. The bag comes with a cup, and you give it a cup. Yes, and in instances there are multiple family members feeding without realizing that somebody's already fed. That's in busy households. Kids going to school, mum fed the dogs quick, took the kids to school. Dad comes through to the kitchen, feeds the dog, and it sort of snowballs and gets a bit out of control.
Especially when they look at you with those eyes saying, I haven't been fed yet.
Yeah. So I find that's where the portion control goes a little bit out the window.
It must be particularly difficult as well in multi-pet households. You know, like I'm picturing my dogs, and it's a case of, you know, whoever finishes the food the fastest is safest, because obviously then you may have a dominant dog scoffing the food and then going and taking over the more submissive.
Yes. No, absolutely.
You know, in terms of feeding, is that one of your recommendations, that when you're trying to manage this, that do you put all the pets on a new diet, or are you talking that you say you've got to feed this dog separately and the others? Or do you look at them as a family?
Yeah, so and that would be case specific as well as to whether they would be able to manage separating dogs for feeding time. If you are able to, for example, like even in my own household, I've got the greedy little one that wants to come and beat everybody off their bowls. So he gets put in the garage behind a baby gate. So he still sees everybody in the rest of the house. He's just cornered off until everybody else is finished. If that is not a possibility, certain weight loss diets, you are able to feed a weight maintenance diet or a weight maintenance portion. So dogs that don't need to lose weight can be on the same food. It's still a high quality food, but they're not going to drop any weight because of it. So that might be easier in a very busy multi-dog household, and they can't separate them for meal times.
Hey there, dog lovers. It's Dr. Kari here, taking a quick break from my podcast interview to share something special with you all. Recently, I've introduced a new addition to my home. Don't worry, it's not another dog. It's one of the 2 new beds for winter from the Huntlea range, the Coletto Winter Bolster Dog Bed, and it's been a hit with the dogs. Let me tell you, dog beds are more than just a cozy spot for my pets. They're symbols of quality and comfort in my home. Crafted in KwaZulu-Natal with locally manufactured material, specially designed by the Huntlea team, the end product speaks volumes about its craftsmanship. What truly stands out are the thoughtful features considered in this design. The raised sides provide a sense of security and comfort for my dogs, while the reversible middle pillow with Coletto material on the one side and soft shell fleece on the other ensures they stay cozy all year round. Durability? Check. Made from 240 GSM polyester material with water-beading technology and UV resistance, these beds are built to last. Plus, with zips throughout, keeping them clean is a breeze, something I know all pet owners need and appreciate. What really seals the deal for me is their sustainability factor. The dog bed's inner is made from recycled polyester fiber, a choice I feel good about as both a pet owner and a veterinarian who cares about our planet. And here's the exciting part for our listeners. You can get 20% off these beds on the Huntlea website using the unique checkout code PAUSE&EFFECT20. Hurry, this offer is valid until the end of May 2024. Details are in the episode description below. Before we proceed, let's discuss a vital aspect of feline care, catering to senior cats' needs. Allow me to introduce UltraPet's Optimal Balance Senior Cat Food, meticulously crafted to meet the unique needs of aging feline companions. This specialized formula features a balanced blend of nutrients, including 34% protein, 12% fat, and 4% fiber, ensuring your senior cat receives the optimal nutrition as they age. With a delectable chicken and rice flavor, UltraPet ensures that even the most discerning senior cats will enjoy their meals. Plus, the vacuum-coated kibbles deliver a taste experience that will keep your cat coming back for more. What sets the senior cat food apart is its thoughtful formulation. With added taurine to promote good eyesight and healthy cardiac activity, your aging companion can enjoy their golden years with vitality. Made with fresh meat, this food provides a better source of healthy protein, while essential vitamins and minerals from VitaCat supports overall health, body function, and immune system protection. For ongoing dental health, the inclusion of calcium and phosphorus help protect your senior cat's teeth. Plus, the optimal mix of omega-3 and 6 fatty acids support a shiny coat and a healthy skin. UltraPet's Optimal Balance Senior Cat Food is available in 2 kgs and 4 kg packs, providing the perfect solution for senior cats transitioning into their golden years. Give it a try and ensure your senior companion enjoys a healthier and more active life. Your pet will thank you, and you'll appreciate UltraPet's dedication to feline well-being. Now, let's return to our conversation. So I think one of the things that I realized taking an interest in nutrition was I always thought that like less is more. And what I mean by that is that if your dog is overweight or we're overweight, going through this, just feed them less. Feed them less, don't eat. You know, there's a big trend for fasting and sort of depriving yourself potentially of food. So there's new trends. Are you in agreement that is actually a really risky thing to do with pets, because like nutritionally you're depriving them of nutrients?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And very much the same as well. Dogs also have their own metabolic rates, and a metabolism functions better when they are being fed multiple meals a day. Average standard is generally two meals a day, but it is also found that 3 to 4 meals a day can also be more beneficial in helping a dog to lose weight. So certainly not only cutting down portions and not depriving them of food. Also, once again, it comes back to what was actually causing the weight gain to start with. So just cutting your dog's food to a minimum is not going to solve the problem, and you might also then exacerbate other problems where your dog then starts inhaling food at a rate of knots because it's in a sense of starvation, because it's hungry and now
or
just
scavenging.
Getting this tiny little meal in aid of losing weight, but causing other problems along the way.
And I mean, we've seen patients in our hospital that have scavenged things like stones,
Yes,
and
sand.
sand. So I mean, they're showing that they really are either nutritionally deprived. Or very, very hungry.
Absolutely.
There are risks of foreign bodies and other consequences.
Finding rubbish bags, digging through that, trying to get anything to satiate their hunger, and getting themselves into big trouble.
So one of the things I try and explain to owners is, unlike not being able to control the access of my son to the fridge, you know what boys are like, they hang on the fridge door. We can definitely control the portions that our pets are getting. So let's go back to the discussion on how to read the back of the label of your pet food, whether it be the one that you're recommending or the one that they're currently on, and this whole feeding for the correct weight. Right. So how do you advise owners determine that?
Okay, so obviously we need to determine what an ideal weight would be, and that is often a range more than a specific number, because we might get to a certain number and it's still not enough, or the opposite, where we've lost maybe a wee bit too much weight just to get to the number, and it's not right. So within a range, we're going to try feed according to that, and it depends on the type of food, the brand of food, and the mechanics of the food itself as well. Some bags will state feed, for example, like puppy food will say expected weight as an adult. That can be quite difficult in itself, especially when it comes to mixed breeds. You have sort of not a great idea of what they're going to be, but a guesstimate. But then, you sort of then watch the body condition score closely when you're feeding to an estimated weight or a guess weight. But either when we're feeding to a certain weight, or you know what the patient's current weight is, and it's fine, we're not trying to lose weight or anything, a lot of the diagrams will then show a feeding per meal or a feeding per 24 hours. Okay. That is where we get a lot of discrepancies as well. People see you feed 280 grams, in the meantime that was per day, and they're feeding that per meal. Oh. So it is just need to check the bag closely as to what they are specifying that portion is for. Is it for a 12-hour period, a 24-hour period, and also age-related as well. And
then to understand that that's an indication, because they can't specifically say that. I think most pet food companies would rather have dogs do well and have portions regulated than be making a recommendation that's under the recommended amount, and then if dogs go, well, this is nutritionally void. You know, like this is not actually.
No, absolutely.
So from what I'm understanding, you look at the back of packaging, most of it is an amount to feed, and it gives you a range within a 24-hour period. You divide that by the number of meals, and then say if you're going to do 2 meals a day, divide it by 2, and then obviously assess the response to that.
Yeah.
Now, one thing you made mention of, and I think it's important for us at this point in the podcast, is to have a chat about those young patients or our young pets, and why it is so important to get the portion and the calorie content correct because of the consequences, obviously, especially in large breeds. So can you take us through to how you explain to pet owners, particularly when you're seeing them for puppy consults, why that weight management early on is so critical?
Yeah. So first and foremost with puppies, you want them to grow as slowly as possible without being underweight. Their bone and joint development takes up to 18 months, 24 months even for your giant breeds. And we would like those to develop slowly and strongly for stronger joints when they're in their adult and senior years. If you are feeding either excessive amounts of food or even a lesser quality type of food, and these animals are shooting up at a rate of knots and they've gotten to 40 kilos when they're like 4 months old, you risk having weaker joints, particularly when they're older. And oh, sorry, I've lost my train of thought.
That's okay. Weaker joint. The developmental issues.
Yes, yeah. Sorry, I've gone completely blank.
Shall I ask you again? So why in particular do we advise, particularly in the large and giant breeds, that owners feed their puppies carefully so that they're not overweight at this stage?
Yeah, so with the joint development, large and giant breed puppies can take anything from 18 to 24 months to mature. And if we have puppies either growing too quickly or being overweight at any point during that growth phase, you're putting extra strain on those joints, making them weaker and more susceptible to arthritis and bone deformities later in life. And unfortunately then when they are adults and seniors, not able to be with us as long as we would like.
So you really, that advice you give in the first initial stage is like setting them up.
Yeah, it's crucial
developmentally.
Sort of trying to have our pets live with us as long as humanly possible. And so the correct decision early on is the foundation for where you go from.
So really important for the listeners is that during that puppy phase, I always, we discuss like times to ensure, times to really choose the right diet is during the early stages. Absolutely. And obviously later on in life. Yeah. But, that developmental process is so critical that you don't want to have a dog that has hip dysplasia or elbow issues, and diet plays a role.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the advice I always try and give is feed the best that you can afford for the first 24 months of that puppy's life. Thereafter, we can look at more affordable options. There's lots that we can do to help, but at least for the first 24 months of that puppy, that is the set stage, and feed the best that you can afford for that time frame, and you'll have a much better outcome going forward.
And then in terms of, because I know we're going to discuss this as part of, I know we've been holding back a little bit, and we're going to talk about exercise, but when we've got these puppies in and potentially you recognize that they may be either a breed that is more prone to gaining weight, or you can see already that they're growing too quickly. How do you advise owners in terms of, they go, well, I want to run with this dog. So what stage and how do you go about advising increased activity so that they are actually trying to use some of this calorie input?
Yeah, it can be quite difficult with puppies in the sense that, yes, everybody wants to run the puppy and, it's got
Hike.
Boundless energy, yes. But then once again, we need to be very careful of the joints and the bone development. Any hard exercise, long periods of exercise can actually be detrimental to a puppy's growth. So I advise gentle exercise for puppies. We certainly don't need to be running them around the block or going on 5K marathons or taking them hiking. Their bones and joints are not set to handle that. And once again, if we do have a bit of a weight problem, let's rather look more at splitting food into more meals during the course of the day. Watch that portion control and gentle exercise. So I'm also very much a fan of swimming, even for puppies as well.
Oh, nice.
That it's a very gentle, weightless exercise. Puppies generally love water. And you can sort of get a bit more of an exercise in there without putting too much strain on their joints.
Absolutely. That non-weight bearing movement
Exactly.
and full range of motion is
Yes.
so great.
Yes,
So
yeah.
if people have the ability, it's a great
Absolutely.
recommendation,
Yeah.
particularly in our climate.
Yes.
It's a win-win.
Yeah.
Other
Phone a
than-
friend.
phone a friend. We use your pool.
Yeah.
So let's talk about exercise. It's a good time for us to talk. So what we were saying, obviously, often overweight pets, because there is an excess of calories, and it's then being stored and stored as fat.
Yes.
So before we get to overweight pets, what is your general recommendation? Obviously, you're saying puppies, you slowly get into it. At what stage can people really start getting active with their pets? And what is reasonable for working people? I mean, I'm asking you this probably from the perspective that when I was living in the UK, your dogs were far more inside, and there was an expectation that most people would walk their pets twice a day. You put them on leads, you see everybody in way of getting out of the house.
Yes.
But in South Africa, we feel that our pets self-exercise, whereas the majority sit behind the gate waiting for you to get home.
Yes.
So how do you have that discussion?
All dogs, regardless of breed, size, age, do require some form of exercise. Once again, I don't expect everybody to know straight off the bat exactly how much exercise or what the animal can tolerate. Certain breeds, obviously, for example, brachycephalic, the flat face breeds, they're not going to handle as much exercise as a border collie would. So it does come down to a couple of particulars as well, but certainly every dog needs some form of exercise, and on a daily basis. Once a week off to the dog park is not going to be good enough. And also for mental stimulation for these patients or for the dogs, there needs to certainly be some form of well-rounded exercise on a daily basis.
So what does that look like?
So it also depends on your own circumstances. Are you in an apartment complex? Are you able to take your pet out for walks? Do you have a large garden? And the connotation that while you're at work and the dog is running around, sorting himself out is, we need to get over that thought as well. A large garden does not mean a fit dog.
No.
So you actually need to physically interact with your dog, and that can be even just in play, have them chase a ball, good tug play with the dog, so they don't even necessarily need to run, but tug play is also good exercise for them as well. If you're interested in joining sports with your dog as well, there you've got agility, you've got flyball. So there's multiple options for what suits your circumstances as well. But certainly walking, playing, and swimming activities if that's available to you as well.
I don't want to neglect the cats, because often we get into conversations about dogs and it's easy because but I'm going to use the example of mine because I think a lot of people can relate to this. I have one male cat who will go and gallivant, and there's nothing I can do.
Yes.
The neighbours are sometimes delighted to see a Bengal in their garden, and we'll get messages on the neighbourhood group, and other times they're like, your cat's roaming and it's going to kill the birds. So it's quite also contentious in terms of saying go.
Yes.
But cats are not owned. I believe they own you.
Own you, yes.
So I've got that one, and he self-exercises. He's always out and about, and he's relatively lean. Whereas
Yes.
I've got the female cats who tend to stay within the property.
Right.
And if anything, those ones are the ones that get more bored.
Yes.
And are more sedentary and will, like any opportunity, will eat.
Yes.
How do you advise your cat owners for cats that are more at home
Yes.
to increase their activity?
Yeah. So I do ask them to include a lot of play with these cats as well. It might be very slow to start with, but certainly try. And not every cat is going to chase a feather wand. Some of them prefer a little bit of a laser light activity. So try different options. Crinkle balls, crinkle catnip toys. That is my cat's personal favorite, is anything that crinkles. But then if they're also so obsessed with food, you can also use food to your advantage. So instead of the cat just sitting having a bowl of food, when it comes down to the meal times, take a handful of the food and put the bowl away for a couple of minutes, but actually sort of like throw a little pellet down the passageway, and they've actually got to move and go and get the food.
Oh, that's clever.
So they are rewarded for moving. And even just small, tiny increments of exercise like that from where there was nothing before, you will start seeing advantages, getting up and moving. They'll lose a little bit of weight from that, but the cat will start feeling better in the sense that they will then want to move more themselves. So even make the feeding time a game where they've got to get up and move, that they don't just get to sit at a bowl for free and eat their meal, or even put a little handful of biscuits in one place, a handful of biscuits in another place. So to get their full meal, they've got to move from A to B to C. And I don't necessarily advise for very overweight cats to necessarily put it on any heights. But when they have started losing weight, height exercise is a good thing as well. So getting them to jump up onto something, not necessarily a high counter, but move up, move down, get on a cat scratcher post, come back down. All of that sort of exercises is brilliant for them.
And it's great for bonding, isn't it? It's great
for spending time with your animal. That's why you have an animal.
Yes, yeah. I mean, we are really fortunate that these days, particularly for cats, that they are developing more and more toys and food puzzles. And I mean, cats were always a bit neglected when it came to toys.
Absolutely.
We're seeing the stuff that's coming into the practice now, and it's great because we've got some nice options for cat scratching posts and things that we
get these little wind-up toys as well that the cat can sort of chase around the house. So there's lots of ways to implement just movement. You've just got to get those animals moving.
And I take it, I take it the jumping down when you've got an overweight cat is because of the impact of them landing. So you don't want them to do damage when they're overweight.
Yes, yeah.
Is that the same? So going back to dogs, is that the same reason why you say your advice is to increase activity slowly, because you obviously don't want injury to these larger pets.
It's exactly the same for us. You would never expect someone who's overweight to now go and run 5Ks down the tar road. Firstly, their knees are going to be shot at the end of that day, and it's not going to be pleasant. It's not fun, and you're more likely to turn away from it than if it's that hard, that difficult, that painful. So just increasing very gentle, very small amounts of exercise until the body is then adjusted to that. Then you increase it a bit more. So very gentle to start with. We don't need to be jarring joints, causing pain, because even from pets, they're going to back away from it if they have found it unpleasant. If it's been uncomfortable, they've expected to jump from a height and it's hurt their legs and possibly even their backs as well. We certainly don't want to be advising that and don't want those accidents happening.
And I mean, I can relate to this because it's the same, when I decide, no, I'm going to get back, I'm going to prioritize my exercise again, I'm going to get back into exercise. You kind of want to go all out because you want to see results. We are sort of in a day and age where we want sort of more instant gratification in terms of we want results. We want to see that the effort that we're putting in is actually producing that kind of result. So I think, teaching patience and managing expectations, like you say, is great, especially with your clients who feel very overwhelmed by having to tackle their overweight pet and having that support with you. So how often are you advising that you see these pets? And other than, are you recording these weights? Are you actually, so that there's a visual representation? Because obviously owners will see their pets every day. And sometimes
absolutely. So you don't necessarily see any weight loss happening. So at the initial consultation, when I am seeing these overweight patients, I am taking chest and waist measurements, obviously getting with a starting weight. And there is a program that I use where I put in all the values and the numbers and what diet we're going to be feeding. And this program actually helps plot a graph of our expected time frame.
Oh, wow.
I must say 90% of the time it is a time frame of about 6 to 8 months. So as I say, it's not the overnight process. We are wanting to do this slowly and healthily.
Yes.
But then it does give us a little idea of where we should be going. And I do recommend, especially initially, to start with a 2 to 3 week time frame in between visits. Pop on the scale, I do a quick measurement, and we pop that into the program as well. And on that graph, it then shows us, are we on track? Are we a little bit behind? Are we a little bit too fast at this point? Because we don't want to lose weight too quickly, because then exactly the same will happen as with us. So you get a little bit of rebound weight after the fact. And we obviously don't want a skinny malink at the end of the day either. So very useful tools to help us.
So actually physically measuring it's really great.
Yeah.
So you're taking the circumference of the waist and of the chest?
Correct.
Is that, okay.
Yes, yeah. So that is where obviously majority of the fat sits. And I actually had a cat in the other day, quite an overweight cat. And weight-wise, the cat had not changed very much, but centimeters around the cat's chest and waist had dropped significantly. But he had also started taking the cat to physio, so the cat was also building muscle at that point. So that was probably where a little bit of extra weight was coming from, or that the weight hadn't changed very much, but that the actual measurement around the cat was significantly less.
That's important, isn't it? Because, I mean, we want them to maintain good quality muscle mass.
Absolutely.
Whilst dropping weight. And obviously fat and muscle weigh different amounts. And we want them to build muscle because often when they've been sedentary and they are overweight, they haven't been doing exercise, the muscles are wasted. Yeah. So really great advice. Yeah. And in terms of, so I liked your thing that you're saying is steadily. When we're making recommendations, so let's use an example, a case example. You've got a 45 kilo Labrador that comes in, you go, my word, this dog needs to be closer to 30, say 2 or 3. You're not going to suddenly say, I want you to feed for 32 kilos. That is unrealistic.
Yeah, the dog's going to be hungry.
They're going to be hungry, they're going to scavenge. Everyone's going to be miserable. Maybe the only happy person's going to be the pet owner who's going to keep having extra food. So how do you drop? Is this when you see them, you say, okay, now it's time to drop a little bit further?
Correct.
Okay. And this is why it's so important to have the kind of guidance that you provide.
So especially when they're sort of vastly or significantly overweight, then there's a lot of weight to drop. So as you say, if we've got to get 12 kilos off of a dog, for instance, dropping the portion to accommodate that weight category is going to be too much for the dog to handle in one fell swoop. So then I would sort of generally drop in about the portion for a 5 kilo difference, if that makes sense. So if we are starting at 45, our end goal is 32, but to start, I'll feed a 40 kilo dog.
Okay.
Once we reach there, we can decrease more, or if the dog has, prior to that, already managing quite well, not begging for food, not seemingly hungry, because a lot of these weight loss diets also do have extra fiber. They are designed to make the dog feel fuller for longer. So if the dog is coping well, we can then drop a wee bit more. But it is certainly incremental. It's not all in one fell swoop, especially when we've got a lot of weight to lose.
Absolutely.
For the guys that just have a couple of kilos to lose, absolutely, we feed straight away what our end goal weight is.
And the cats? So, especially in multi-cat households, I know that people really struggle with this. And this is like I have this conversation a lot. And it applies to my household where you've got the chunky cats, and then the cat who comes in, and I want to encourage him to come back. So I always want food available. But historically, we always fed cats ad lib, which meant we left this bowl, and every time it was empty, we're like, big panic, and we fill it with food again. Are we having to move away from that? I mean, particularly when we're busy and our lifestyles are such that you may be missing from home all day. You're at work. And so how do you manage those situations when you have a multi-cat household and one's chunky and the others are okay?
It can be incredibly difficult. So ideally, if you are just starting out with cats, please do try feed them on a meal basis. Long term, the food market is growing astronomically, and we've got so many different diets that can help for so many different diseases. For example, cats that are prone to bladder stones, kidney disease. There are so many different diets, and at some point in a multi-cat household, you're quite likely to have multiple different cats on multiple different diets. The kidney cat can't have the urinary food or the weight loss food. So ideally, if you are starting out, it is a good idea to start cats on the meal process. So yes, wanting to encourage cats to come back, but it is possible. If you start as a kitten with a recall process, or they know there's different meal times, those cats will come back, no questions asked. A little bit of a sneaky advice that I do give to people that already have a multi-cat household with adult or to senior cats it's going to be hard to change them onto a meal system is quite often the chunky cat can't get on the kitchen counters, but the other guys can. So keep their food sort of out of reach of the overweight cat. So the guys that would normally come and eat their regular food, they can access it in a spot where an overweight cat wouldn't be able to get to it. So that is an option. It's a sneaky way.
It's sneaky.
But
it's very useful. I mean, I do the same in the sense that when he comes home, I'm like, some extra food. So I do the sneaky additional meal offering for him. But so I mean, let's now talk about treats before we lose the opportunity, because I think a lot of people may go, but you're talking about meals and portion, and it's definitely the genetics of the pet. It's nothing that I'm doing. I don't think people always realize the additional calories in treats.
Absolutely.
So what is your advice in terms of people really like to reward, whether it's even cats, I mean, and even cats these days, but particularly dogs, when they're training or they want to call them back from the gate, or they want to reward their pets.
No, absolutely.
How do you advise owners get this as part of their daily intake?
Okay, so obviously different types of treat options. Sometimes people can take the dog or cat's actual food and use it as a treat, especially quite food-driven animals are quite happy to get a kibble out of their bowl as a reward. But then we do also get sort of high-calorie, high-value treats. For example, a block of cheese. There are very few pets that would turn down a block of cheese. But very important to note that even a small little square of cheese, about the size of a thumbnail, is equivalent to us having a burger.
Wow.
And that's just a tiny little cube of cheese. And I can list multiple households that are, here's a piece of cheese, here's a piece of cheese, oh, I want another piece of cheese, here's a piece of cheese. And meantime, you've just fed your dog the equivalent of 2 burgers. And then not understanding why the dog's not losing weight. So first and foremost, got to understand sort of the calorie content of the treat, but also just in equation to what he's eating in the course of the day, how much of that treat they're getting.
And how many?
Yeah, never a bad thing to treat and reward. I treat and reward all day, every day. But then if they're getting that, it's got to come out of the meal portion. It's got to come out somewhere. Everything's got to balance. So if you're having a high treat day where there's multiple treats, you've gone to the dog park, you needed to recall multiple times, multiple biscuits or blocks of cheese were given. So then that's got to come out of the dinner portion tonight, for example. The equivalent calorie content has got to come out of the dinner portion that evening. Your dog's not going to starve. They've had treats during the course of the day. Yes, they might put on a couple of puppy eyes on. That's a small amount of kibbles in the bowl. But if they've had the calorie intake during the course of the day, the equivalent calories for that evening, minus what was given, will be absolutely sufficient.
Okay.
Yeah.
And lastly, for people who have children, and obviously young children dropping food, or even worse, but not worse, it sounds terrible, sorry, or equally as important, the people who are home and they're rewarding
Domestics
all day.
making
friends.
they're like
friends, or the granny at home,
Absolutely.
like watching TV, sharing food.
Yeah.
How do you stress the importance of this? And like you're saying, you show the block of cheese being equivalent to a burger.
Yeah.
How do you stress the impact? Do you get them to keep a food diary, for example? Or do you ever get people to actually list realistically what they're feeding so that they get an idea of quite the impact?
In all honesty, in today's busy lifestyle, highly unlikely to get anybody that's going to be that sort of to the T, writing absolutely everything down that's been given during the course of the day. But certainly have the discussion with the people in the household. Sort of what always comes to me in conversation is that at the end of the day, an overweight animal, you're cutting off about 2 years of their lifespan. So a small child is not going to understand that conversation, but everybody else in the house might. So certainly have that conversation with people that this is unhealthy for the pet. We're doing more harm than good by giving little tidbits left, right, and center. But certainly if you have children in the home, you can almost guarantee that the animal is getting a little bit of something extra on the sidelines. So take that into mind. Take a small portion out of their mealtime foods. As I say, the weight changes are quite subtle, and you're not going to see it overnight. So
Creeps.
Yes, exactly. So just be mindful, and if you're taking a bit out of the food portion for breakfast and dinner, and you're noticing that the dog is looking hungry, he's probably then not getting as much as you thought he was during the day, so then add a bit back in. Or you are taking food out and the dog's getting chunkier every day, then you need to look in depth. It could even, I've had neighbors throwing food over for animals, so it might not even be in your family or in your household that extra food is coming from. So you need to be a little bit
everyone involved in that
PI investigator where food is coming from. But unfortunately, that is the reality. When it comes to obese pets, you do need to try and find where this extra food source is coming from. And there might even be a little kid on the other side of the fence who brings a little sandwich every day and shares it with her friend. So it can be difficult, but there are ways and means. And
it's great advice. I mean, I think probably just in wrapping up, the reason why we feel strongly about weight management, or both thin and overweight pets, is not from an aesthetic point of view. This is not fat shaming because we don't like the look of an animal. There's absolutely, I think if anything, most people find them a little bit more endearing, and that's probably but this is because there is genuine risk for ongoing health issues, and like you say, shortening that lifespan, which we don't get enough time with our pets.
Exactly. It's a short life to start with, so try and make it as long as possible.
That's good.
And from multiple other medical issues that can come from being both underweight and overweight. At the end of the day, we just want them to be the healthiest they can be and be with you as long as possible.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you so much for your advice on this. It was a great conversation. And good luck with the weight clinics.
Yes.
I think we're going into winter, so we're more likely to see a few more of them coming in. Thank you. Thanks.
Here to help.
Yes. Thank you for tuning into this valuable episode about weight clinics with Sister Cat from Hillcrest Veterinary Hospital. I hope you have found it as informative as I have. Your support means the world to us, so please like, share, and leave us a review to help other pet owners benefit from this information. Remember, you can catch all of our episodes on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or YouTube. See you next time. Welcome back to Just for Pets. You're with Dr. Cara.
Hello, Doctor. It's Chanel the Persian. And, I can't seem to stop retching to get this hairball up.
Are you on a special diet?
Excuse me?
Hairball control food will really help. And maybe some Laxapet. And lucky for you, Just for Pets have a big range.
Well, how early can I get some?
Order today, and we'll deliver pronto.
Wow! I feel better already.
Justforpets.co.za. Vet approved, pet adored. Get it all to your door.
We have an exciting announcement to make. We are looking for guest speakers who are passionate about the pet industry and sponsors to support future episodes. Are you an expert in pet training, nutrition, or behavior? Maybe you're a veterinarian with insights to share, a pet store owner with unique experiences, or a pet product inventor. We want to hear from you. The Pause and Effect podcast is a platform for industry professionals like you to showcase your knowledge, experiences, and stories. As a guest speaker on our podcast, you'll have the opportunity to share valuable information, engage with our audience, and have your voice heard in the pet community. Whether you want to discuss training techniques, emerging pet care trends, or the importance of mental stimulation for pets, we want to feature you and your expertise. So, if you're passionate about pets and have something to say, we invite you to join us on an upcoming episode of the Pause and Effect podcast. But wait, that's not all. The Pause and Effect podcast is also seeking sponsors to support our mission of educating and entertaining pet lovers worldwide. By becoming a sponsor, you'll gain exposure to our engaged audience and have your brand associated with the love and care that we have for our four-legged friends. If you own a pet-related business, offer pet products or services, or simply want to align your brand with our pet-loving community, we'd love to partner with you. As a sponsor, your brand will be featured prominently in our episodes and our social media channels. It is a great opportunity to showcase your offerings to a dedicated audience of pet enthusiasts. So whether you're an expert in the pet industry looking to share your knowledge, or a business seeking to reach a pet-loving audience, we want to hear from you. To apply as a guest or to inquire about becoming a sponsor of the Pause and Effect podcast, please contact me at drkara@pauseandeffect.co.za. Get in touch and let's discuss the various opportunities. Thank you for joining us today. We can't wait to welcome our future guest speakers and sponsors to the Pause and Effect podcast. Remember, every episode is an opportunity to celebrate our four-legged friends.